Hello friend, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Becky if you are new, and we've got a big menu we are going to be cooking today. I have 12 people coming over for dinner tomorrow, and I'm going to try to get as much of the meal prep done today as I can. So this oven, I'm going to preheat to 250, and this oven, I'm going to preheat to 400 because we have two different desserts that we're going to make today. And the theme of this dinner party is harvest. So I actually yesterday just harvested 2024's garlic harvest. So the main dinner is going to be themed around garlic. And then we are going to theme the two desserts we're going to be making around these blueberries that I harvested yesterday. So I'm going to put those in here. So what we're going to do is start with the desserts so that those can be baking, and then we can get going on the other. I think we have 4 components to the main dinner. So my sister is in town from out of state, and her husband is here with her kids, and my aunt and uncle and my other aunt are here from out of state, and they're all staying at my parents' house. And I thought it'd be fun to have them over for dinner. So that is what we are doing tomorrow. Just gotta get my apron on because we are gonna be doing some baking, and flour is gonna be going all over this kitchen, hopefully in just a minute. It is now 2:23. My goal was to get going on this a few hours ago, but we're getting going on it now, and that will be just fine. So the first dessert we're gonna be making is a blueberry custard dessert. It's actually a blueberry custard pie with a streusel topping. So I need to get going on the crust. I don't have any crust in my freezer right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and make one first thing. The second dessert we're gonna be making are pavlovas. My sister requested that, and because she's a guest, I went ahead and I'm going to make that for her. I have never made them. My sister used to make pavlova all the time, and I have not made it before, which reminds me, I actually need room temperature eggs to make those, which I don't have. So I'll show you a trick on how to get room temperature eggs if you forget to pull eggs out of your refrigerator in time for them to come to room temperature. I'm gonna need 6 egg whites. So what I'm gonna do is take 6 of these beautiful farm fresh eggs, put them in this bowl, and I'm gonna cover them with warm water. My tap water gets really warm, so this is going to get these eggs to room temperature in no time. There'll be plenty room temperature by the time I've got the blueberry custard pie in the oven. We're also gonna set a beautiful tablescape outside in the lawn, I think. I got a few new table decor pieces. I actually ordered silverware so that when I have these parties, since I tend to have them about every 2 to 3 months, I can actually use real cutlery instead of using plastic. And I will have just a set aside for parties. So in here, we're gonna get going on our pie crust. Normally, I like to keep pie crust in my freezer, but I don't have one, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a 2-crust recipe so that we can use the pie crust today, and then I can put one in the freezer for next time I want a pie or a quiche. So that's flour, a little bit of sugar, salt, and lots of butter. So you can transfer this to a bowl and do this next step in a bowl, but I've got lots to do today, which is what I normally do. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish this crust in the food processor. So I left the chunks a little bit big. I usually start with 1/2 cup of water, and then I usually end up needing to add about a tablespoon or more. I'm just gonna pulse this in. I left the butter a little bit on the bigger side so that when I did this part, I wouldn't get the butter too small, and that looks pretty good right there. I don't think I'm gonna add any more flour at this point. So we need this dough to chill for just a little bit, and so we can have this chill while we make the filling and the topping, but we also are gonna go ahead and start roasting this garlic from this year's harvest, so that can be roasting while this dough is chilling as well. I got this peeled yesterday in preparation for today. So I'm not gonna need this pastry. I'm just gonna push it together with my hands. There's plenty of moisture I can tell in this dough that I don't need to add anymore. Just with a little bit of coaxing, it'll come together. So half of this is for today, and I'm gonna wrap that in parchment. This is going into the freezer, so I'm gonna wrap this in plastic wrap. This is gonna be ready for me next time I wanna make a pie. And this is gonna go in the fridge. So this just goes directly in the freezer. When I wanna make a pie or a pot pie or whatever it might be with this, I'll just throw it in the fridge overnight and let it thaw, and then it's ready to use. So now, let's start roasting some of this garlic. It smells good. We're gonna confit this garlic, so we're gonna slow cook it in fat, and I'm gonna use, I think I'm gonna use avocado oil. You can use any kind of oil you want. The oils that I tend to use in my house are avocado oil and olive oil. I don't think I want much of a flavor on this, so I'm gonna choose avocado oil. I had to remember what I needed the different garlic components for. So we are gonna confit this garlic. You can do this in the oven or on the stove, but I'm gonna be using the oven for the two desserts, so I'm just gonna do it on the stove. And this is how I normally do it. And this takes a good 20 to 30 minutes because I'm gonna cook this very low and slow. We need this for the focaccia. We need this for the potatoes. I can't wait to share with you this potato recipe I'm gonna try. We need this for, that's it. And then we need the other garlic that I have left for the 40 clove chicken. Now these garlic cloves are huge. They're probably 2 or 3 times the size of a regular garlic clove. This variety of garlic is called rocambole. It's a hard neck garlic variety, and it'll probably be a variety I grow all the time, because how awesome is it to peel a garlic clove that is this big that isn't elephant garlic. So that's not 40 cloves of garlic, but I think it's the equivalent of at least 60 cloves of garlic, which is fantastic. So now we can get going on the blueberry filling for our cake, our pie. I just washed up my blueberries, and if you're new to my kitchen, welcome. And if you're here, you know that this is typically how I cook when I have big parties. Is I like to do as much prep the day before as I can so that I can clean the kitchen, and on the day of the party, I don't really have to worry about dirtying the kitchen. Now there are gonna be components we need to do tomorrow, but it's gonna be very minimal because I'm gonna get most of it done today. For our custard filling, we're gonna start with 1 egg, 1 cup of sour cream. I will link all these recipes that I can down below. Some of them I'm gonna be making up as we go. Flour, sugar, this is not one of them, salt, and vanilla. I wanted to mix that together first before adding our blueberries. I'm just gonna check to make sure I got all the stems. These are absolutely beautiful blueberries. Now I'm just gonna fold these blueberries into our custard. I'm just gonna add a few extra blueberries just because I can. This was boiling a little too vigorously on this bigger burner, so I just put this on my smallest burner so that this can cook as low and slow as possible. I can't tell you how many times I have boiled pies over in the oven, so I always like to use a cookie sheet with some foil up so that if it boils over, which it probably will, it'll boil onto this cookie sheet. So this is preheated to 400 degrees. We're gonna start by baking this at 400 degrees. And while this is baking, we're gonna make the streusel topping. For the streusel topping, I just rinsed out my bowl that I had the blueberries in, and we're gonna go ahead and make it with some butter, whoop, brown sugar, flour. And this recipe calls for nuts. I'm gonna leave those out because I know most people in my family don't like that. So I think I'm just gonna make a little bit more streusel topping with a little extra flour to make up for the nuts. A little bit more brown sugar, and I'm gonna get out just maybe a tablespoon or two more butter. I could have substituted oats for the nuts, but I think it's gonna be good with just kind of a plain streusel topping. We're gonna let those blueberries shine. So I'm gonna go ahead and check this off. Our pie is, oh yeah, blueberry custard pie. I'm gonna check that because that's basically done. So let's go ahead and get going on the pavlova now. And I did have to print a recipe for that because I have never made this before, but I have made whipped egg whites before, so I think it's pretty similar. And this is a great dessert that you can make up to 3 days in advance. I think I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up because these garlic cloves are soft and I actually want them to brown just a little bit. What I like to do before I start a new recipe, and I usually need to do it 1 or 2 or 3 times to really grasp it, is I like to read the whole recipe through. Sometimes I skip this step and I usually regret when I do. Here's our streusel topping. So I have my my phone timer on so that when we need to put the streusel topping on our blueberry pie, my phone will go off. I'm trying to get better about that. Okay, so I'm gonna read this and then we're gonna make the pavlova. So here are our room temperature eggs. And we're gonna do this in the stand mixer because it's gonna just go a lot quicker. I've got a container for the egg yolks and something I'm gonna crack the egg white into because you do not wanna get any yolk into your egg whites. These won't go to waste. I will probably, if I can't find anything I need to use them with in this cooking day, I will give them to my dogs or I will give them back to my chickens. So the egg yolks will be used in some capacity. So these are chicken eggs from my chickens. And they're beautiful. Put that in there. Now I'm gonna measure out the sugar that I need. So now that we're at a soft peak, I'm gonna start pouring in my sugar. I don't want my crust to get any darker, so I'm just going to take this foil and wrap it around the top. So I would normally not put the expense of a vanilla bean in something like this, but I am out of vanilla. I cannot believe that has happened. So I have no vanilla, but I happen to have vanilla beans because I was gonna make more vanilla extract. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of lemon juice in here. And cornstarch. And I'm gonna mix that together. And that is a beautiful, well, yeah, I'm gonna call that a stiff peak. I cannot believe I am out of vanilla. I go through a lot of it. So that just means I'm gonna have to pick some up while the vanilla I make is steeping. So I've got my 12 circles here, and now we are going to shape our pavlova. You could pipe this. I think I'm just gonna use a spoon. You can make one big one if you want a nice, beautiful presentation. I'm gonna do individual ones. The nice thing about using a vanilla bean is, I don't know if you can see that, but there are beautiful vanilla bean specks in here. I just tasted that and that tastes fantastic. So what I'm gonna do is just put dollops of this meringue onto our parchment. My sister used to make these. She would make a big one and she would sometimes do two, and then she would layer them and make this beautiful display. And I just remember, I don't know, I was probably in high school or something the first time she ever made one of these, and I was blown away because it just looks absolutely incredible. And so far it hasn't been too hard to make. So we're gonna make little nests. So how we're gonna flavor these pavlovas, and I apologize if I am not pronouncing that correctly. I probably am not. You all will let me know if I am, and the correct pronunciation, which I appreciate. I guess I should pronunciate the word pronunciation. And here we go. So how I'm gonna flavor these is I am going to take out some raspberry curd that I made and some lemon curd that I made with you all. The raspberry curd is from a local farmer, and the lemons are not. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and unless they are grown in a greenhouse, there is no lemons being grown around here. But I was able to make some really beautiful lemon curd this winter with some in-season lemons. And we're going to pull those out of the freezer, and then we're gonna make whipped cream tomorrow and decorate them beautifully tomorrow. And we'll probably serve it with a cup of decaf coffee. So now that I've got 12 dollops, I'm just gonna go through and try to make sure that they're as even as possible. I'm gonna need to get a spatula here. The awesome thing about this is it becomes a canvas for whatever you want to flavor it with. You could add different extracts. Almond extract in this would be fantastic. So now I have to figure out how to get these into kind of a dollop shape. And then I want to make a little nest for the curd and the whipped cream and the fresh berries that I'm gonna put on top. I want to nest in this so the curd sits down inside the pavlova. And these I don't think expand, so hopefully they don't expand into each other. I'm pretty sure they just brown. So here you can see the little nests. So we're gonna get these in the 250-degree preheated oven. These need to bake for an hour and 15 minutes at 225 degrees. And we're gonna turn the oven off and let them cool in the oven without opening the oven, I believe. Let's see. Bake at 225 for 1 hour and 15 minutes, then turn the oven off without opening the oven door and let the meringues cool in the oven for 30 minutes. And then once they are done, we can take them out of the oven, let them finish cooling on the counter, and then package them up, and we can put the curd and the whipped cream on them and decorate them with fresh fruit tomorrow. Which reminds me, I think I'm gonna go ahead and go into the garage and grab the curd now so that it is thawed for tomorrow. This is our raspberry curd that we just made, and this is our lemon curd. Curd is in the refrigerator to thaw. I'm gonna put a check here. Let's go ahead and start on the potatoes because those need to cook, and then while the potatoes are cooking, we will move on probably to our zucchini side dish. I actually want to tidy up my kitchen before I go on to the potatoes, and I thought I should check this pie, and I think it's done. So I can turn this oven off because we're not going to use that until tomorrow. Look at that. So it looks like it's got a nice set to it, and I think I'm going to turn my garlic off. Now, this is going to be more like a roasted garlic paste because these garlic cloves just fell apart, but we're still going to use them and they're still going to be absolutely delicious. And we got 2 products for the price of 1. We got our garlic paste and our oil that's going to be infused of garlic. I got the kitchen tidied up a little bit and we are making fantastic time. I can't believe we already have basically 2 of the desserts done, and the garlic confit is done. And now we're gonna get going on one of the 2 vegetable sides, or is potato technically a vegetable? I don't know. One of the sides, not the main course. Now, my potatoes in my garden are not ready yet, so I went and got these from the store. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna peel them first, and then I'm gonna wash them. I find that if I wash my potatoes first, these are from the store, they're not homegrown, so they're not near as dirty as the ones that come out of my garden. But if I peel them, I always want to wash them after I peel them, so I usually just wash them after I peel them. So that's what I'm going to do. And these are Yukon Gold potatoes. So this recipe that we're going to be making are going to be roasted potatoes, but they're not like your traditional roasted potato where you just take these potatoes, you put them in the oven with some oil, salt, and pepper and roast them. We're actually gonna do a pre-step, and my colander just broke. I don't know where it broke, but one of my little feet fell off. I got this as a wedding gift when Josh and I got married 9.5 years ago, and now it's a little wobbly, but it'll work just fine still. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so there is an extra step you do with this. The first time I saw this technique was probably 10 years ago. When Josh and I first got married, I would watch America's Test Kitchen all the time. It was my absolute favorite cooking show, one of my favorite cooking shows, I should say. And they did this technique on that show. I used to make their recipes all the time, and I never got around to making it. And then I keep seeing this technique now pop up on my Instagram feed, and I thought that this would be fantastic for this dinner because I can prep them in advance. So what we're gonna do is peel them. I'm gonna cube them up just a little bit, and then we're gonna boil them. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna par cook them, and we're gonna make them really shaggy on the outside, and then we're gonna put that garlic infused oil on them, and then we will bake them tomorrow. And because the starches are gonna get all shaggy on the outside, they're supposed to get very, very crispy. At least that's the idea. So we'll find out together how well this technique works. And this technique is usually done all in one day, and I am doing it in 2 days. So if it doesn't work, it's probably gonna be on me. But I can't see why it wouldn't work. So they'll taste delicious regardless. And the recipe does specifically say to use Yukon Gold, so that's why I went and bought them. I do have some potatoes out in the garden that are ready to harvest, but they're not the Yukon Golds, I don't think. So I wanted to follow the recipe as closely as I can. Okay, so I'm gonna go wash those potatoes, and I'm just gonna throw these peels back in this bag, and then I'll bring this to my compost. But I'll just get them in the bag, and that way I can easily carry it to the compost. And then I'm gonna rinse off my cutting board and the vegetable peeler, because we're gonna need the vegetable peeler for another project here. And I want my cutting board kind of cleaned up and this cleaned up. All right, they are washed up and beautiful. I'm gonna grab a knife and my big pot. So what I'm gonna do is cut these into, I don't know, let's see. I don't want them too small, but I don't want them too big either. So we're going for Goldilocks. Okay, maybe about an inch. So bigger than, or like a very healthy bite size. So I was just thinking while I was doing this, I have two options here. I can, which I'm gonna do right now, fill this with water, and I could pop this right here into the refrigerator just with water, and those potatoes won't brown on me. I have another option, which is what I'm gonna do, because I was thinking I could just do that and then tomorrow I'll boil it, strain it, shake them, and roast them. But if I was gonna make mashed potatoes, I would just cover this with water and throw it in the fridge. But I'm going to make another dish because this is gonna get dirty and then I can wash it tonight and I can put it in the roaster pan that I'm probably gonna end up serving these potatoes in. So I'm just gonna fill this and pre-cook them and finish cooking them tomorrow because I don't wanna have to deal with having to wash this pan tomorrow, the day of the party, and the pan that I'm gonna roast them in. This is the new silverware I got for the party. So I have been using plasticware when I have too many people that I don't have enough dishes. My silverware is silverware that I got when Josh and I got married, which was 9.5 years ago, and we've lost a few. So I only have a full set for about 6 people. And I got them on Amazon, and I didn't realize I still didn't have enough. This is for 6 people. So I did end up having to order one more. I hope it's here in time so that we can set the table with these dishes. And these are just gonna be, they're not gonna go into my normal rotation. They're just gonna be for when I have parties so that I can pull those out and not use plasticware. Gonna go ahead and fill this up. So we're gonna have this come to a boil and we are going to cook this for 15 minutes. We're not gonna cook them all the way through because we're gonna finish cooking them in the oven. For this next recipe, we are gonna prep. I am going to be kind of making this one up, so I'm gonna walk you through it as I go. I saw a reel on Instagram that inspired this, and I scoured the internet for that recipe. It was on Delicious Instagram account, and they credited a creator, and I went to Delicious website, I went to the creator's website, I went to all over, and I could not find it. And in the description of the video, it did not say what exactly it was, and it wasn't voiceover, it was just music. So I am going to take inspiration from that and I'm gonna walk you through it. Basically what it is it's a zucchini grilled side dish with a whipped feta and ricotta cheese mixture. After we grill it, we're gonna top it with that. We're gonna top it with a ton of herbs. And I was thinking, I think I'm gonna make an herb oil to top a bunch of our recipes with. So we're gonna have a garlic oil, and then I think I'm gonna make an herb oil. But the way you prep this zucchini is super unique, and it's what intrigued me. Not just the toppings that went on top, but how we're gonna cook these, because I've never cooked zucchini this way before. And I just harvested my first zucchini today. The rest of these are from the store. And Josh, when I walked in and I showed him, because I was really excited, he said, and so it begins. And so the only vegetable I have enough from my garden coming out right now to serve 12 people is sugar snap peas, and we've been eating a lot of sugar snap peas. I just harvested a bunch of them, but I want to freeze dry those because I want to try making those pea veggie things. I don't know what they're called. And so I figured I would go ahead and give this zucchini recipe a try, because if you have zucchini coming out of your garden, this might be a good recipe for you. So what we're going to do is take our zucchini, and that just seems too thin. We're supposed to make ribbons. And then we were going to skewer these ribbons onto a skewer, but they seem a little thin. Let's see. Maybe I can cut them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to cut them thin enough that I can bend them, but thicker than... Yep, we're going to have to use this. I just think that those are going to cook so quickly. Maybe that's the point. Maybe I'll cook them in the oven. I'll broil them instead of grill them. Because the idea, we're working this out together. Every other recipe, I've got a very, very straightforward game plan. This one, I thought I would try a little bit more of a technical recipe. Oh, no, that's perfect. That's exactly what the video looked like. I think the texture on this, if this works out, is going to be what's really good because they're so thin. We're not going to cook these today. If we cook these today, they would be too wilty for tomorrow. Yeah, look at that. You guys ever seen ribbon candy? That's what it reminds me of. Okay. So this is going to take me a little bit of time to do this. And I purchased 2, 4, 5 zucchini, and then I have 1 zucchini in my fridge from the garden. All right, this is the key right here. I cannot wait for you to see how this recipe turned out. It is so delicious. It is very finicky and definitely a little bit more tedious than I would do for just a Wednesday or Tuesday night dinner for Josh and I and my family. But for this dinner party, it is so amazing. It not only tastes delicious, but it has a very beautiful presentation to it. Now, I did 6 zucchinis or 7 zucchinis total. I probably could have doubled it because of just how delicious this was. And all of the recipes in this dinner party turned out fantastic. I have to say that the blueberry custard pie is probably one of my new favorite pies. And I am not a huge pie fan, but I've already made that pie twice. Okay, so there's our first one. I'm just gonna set these on this cutting board and I'm just gonna keep on going. I think I'm only gonna be able to get like 5 out of this. So all I'm doing here is taking my peeler and continuing to peel. What probably would have worked better than a peeler to do this, to get this job done quicker, is a mandolin, but I am just using a vegetable peeler on this day. But if you had a mandolin and you wanted to try this, I would probably use the mandolin. So all I'm doing is, now that I have all of my strips here, I am just going to weave them back and forth and put them on my skewer. I am making sure that the green parts are all facing the same way. That is more just for presentation. I think it's pretty having the green skin facing the same direction. So I was able to get 7 of these, which is perfect. So each person will at least be able to have half. I don't know if my nephews would want to eat this, but I think that will be enough. So I am thinking through if I actually want to put these on my grill because they're so tender. I might throw them under the broiler for, like 3 minutes, 2 minutes on one side, really close to the broiler, turn them over, and then broil them on the other side, and then put the topping on the top. We'll figure that out tomorrow. This project was a little bit more fiddly than I normally do. These potatoes have about 3 minutes left on them. I'm just gonna feel my oil. That's still pretty warm. I don't wanna drain that yet. So, let me get out some serving dishes because I'm gonna put my potatoes after I strain them and toss them about. I'm going to put them in the serving dish they're going to be in. And I think the same with the, I can't figure out what you would think I would have had enough time to figure out what I was going to do with that zucchini because it took me probably 15 minutes to put them on the skewers, but I did not think it through all the way. let me look at my list. I also want to set the tables up outside when it gets cooler tonight. That's what I'm thinking I'm gonna do. I need to iron the napkins because I just washed them and they are very wrinkly. I didn't put on my list, which I should have done. I just have a mental list. I should have put on the things that I need to get done, like set the table, iron the napkins, but I didn't. I know what I need to do next. I need to make the sauce that's gonna go on top of the zucchini. So that's why I am looking at my list, because that makes it a lot easier to remember. So let's make that next. I think I am done with the cutting board, other than I could probably, yes, I am going to rinse this off again, and then I'm gonna harvest some herbs in just a bit. I'll get those washed and prepped so that we can garnish all of our dishes with a ton of fresh herbs, because I have a ton growing in the garden, so I might as well. Wouldn't hurt anything. So after making the pie, I went ahead and I did rinse out my food processor because I knew I was gonna need that for this whipped feta. I don't know if you've seen this going around. I feel like it was around the holidays that it was kind of like viral, whipped feta that you would then serve as an appetizer, but we're gonna kind of make this into a sauce that we're gonna put on top of our zucchini. And I gotta grab my feta because it's in the fridge. It's gonna be a pretty powerful sauce, so I think what I'm gonna do is only use half this, because I think a lot is gonna go a long way, just because zucchini is pretty mild. So I'm just gonna use half this block, and then I'm also gonna cut this with a little bit of ricotta. And I just harvested a bunch of cherry tomatoes from the garden this morning, and I might top these zucchinis with some cherry tomatoes, toss in a little bit of olive oil, and then put this on the top, because my mom used to always combine zucchini and tomatoes, and it was so delicious. So this is what I'm making up here. So I can tell you the measurements. 4 ounces, half this block of feta in my food processor, a 1/4 cup of ricotta cheese, salt. I almost used fresh garlic, but I'm gonna just go ahead and plop in some of this roasted garlic. Oh yeah, that smells divine. Because the theme of this dinner is garlic, so I wanna kind of use as much garlic as I can. Pop that in there. And I think I'm not gonna grill that. I think what I'm gonna do with that zucchini is I'm gonna put it in the broiler, and I am going to put breadcrumbs on the top. That's what I'm gonna do. So stick with me, because I will share with you how I'm going to make this. A little bit of oil. That's our potatoes. I'm gonna get some black pepper in here before I forget, and then we're gonna go ahead and strain our potatoes. And then we'll come back to this. I gotta find my broken strainer. It was full of zucchini. So many of you guys have recommended, and I always forget to do it because I'm not in the habit of doing it, is running cold water down your drain when you pour hot liquid down your drain, so that you're not just running tons of hot water and it can mess with your pipes. Okay, so I remembered today. So I'm running cold water while I pour this hot water, boiling water. Oh man. Okay, these are pretty tender. I probably overcooked them a little bit. That's okay. I cooked them for the amount of time the recipe said, but that must have just been a little too long for how small I cut them. But I'm pretty sure I cut them for the size that the recipe said too. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put these potatoes on a big cookie sheet right here. That is hot. And I'm gonna kind of just move them around in this colander to kind of roughen up the outside to make them shaggy so that they've got lots of surface area on each side. And I just put mashed potatoes on my counter. And now what I'm gonna do is pour these par-cooked potatoes onto this cookie sheet. And we're gonna let these cool. Some of them are in still nice big chunks, which is fantastic. So by spreading them out, we're gonna let them cool a little bit quicker to kind of help stop that cooking process. For a minute there, I was thinking I was gonna need to turn these into mashed potatoes, but I think they're gonna be okay. I think we're still gonna be able to make them nice and crispy. I'm gonna try not to work with them anymore. Once they cool, I am gonna put a good amount of this garlic infused oil on the top, and then I'm gonna pop them into the fridge, and then we will bake them tomorrow to make them crispy. And then we are gonna finish them. You will see how we're gonna finish them, but we're gonna add even more to them once they are crispy. So now let's come back to So I just tasted this and it is incredible. So I'm gonna get this into a container, pop this into the fridge, and this is done for tomorrow. Look at that, beautiful. So we're done with these, so I'm gonna get these in the dishwasher, and I'm gonna go harvest some herbs so I can prep those for tomorrow. So my oil is nice and cool now, so we're gonna go ahead and transfer it into some containers, and I'm gonna separate them. I'm gonna use both the oil and the garlic tomorrow quite a bit, but I do want to have them separated. Nice and room temperature now. So you can see that our garlic is no longer roasted garlic cloves, but it is roasted garlic and has wonderful flavor. It just is a kind of a paste, but I can use that no problem. Now I'm gonna make the marinated tomatoes to go on top of our zucchini dish. I have these cherry tomatoes I just picked out of the garden this morning. I'm going to just cut them in half, and then I'm gonna marinate them in some red wine vinegar, salt and pepper, and some of our garlic infused oil. And if you've never had marinated tomatoes before, they are absolutely delicious, not just on the zucchini dish, but they will definitely elevate any salad. So I'll just show you how I'm going to marinate these. I'll pop them in the fridge and we will enjoy them tomorrow. I was just about to get ready to make the main course, which is 40 garlic clove chicken. And I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 chicken thighs and 4 drumsticks. These are chickens that I helped process. I enlisted the help of a friend. Well, they raise chickens and they offered to raise some chickens for me if I was willing to come help and process and butcher them, which I did. And so this is pretty special chicken here. And my mom just called to see if my niece and nephew could come as well. So we were gonna have 12 people. Now we're gonna have 14. I don't think 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. That's 1 piece of chicken per person. With all the other food, that's probably enough. But I'm gonna go pull out some more chicken out of the freezer because this is all dark meat and maybe someone would prefer light meat. So I'm gonna pull out a package of chicken breast and then they're gonna be frozen, but I can get it all ready. And once they thaw, I can brown those, but I'll show you what I'm gonna do here. So this is my chicken and pork freezer. And let's see, I just organized this and now I can't remember where I put everything. So, okay, so these are 2 pretty large chicken breasts. So what I'm gonna do is I will end up cutting these in half. So we'll get 4 more servings of chicken from this one package. I have those chickens in the cold water defrost method, so hopefully we can get those browned here pretty quickly. I'm gonna go ahead and brown these chickens in my roaster pan because it's the biggest pan I have. I do want to get a stainless steel one of these. I got this when Josh and I first got married. I think I got it with wedding registry gift cards, and I think it's time to upgrade at some point here because I use this roaster pan all the time and I would like one that is stainless steel. So what I need to do though before we can start cooking our chicken is I actually need to season this chicken. So what I've done is put this chicken on a paper towel so that it's dry, and I patted the top dry, and I'm gonna season the top of the chicken. So these chicken thighs have the skin on, but they do not have a bone in them. So when I processed these, I went ahead and I took the bone out just so that it'd be easier to eat on the day we're eating them. I wanted to try a new recipe. I've made this one other time. 40 cloves of garlic in one chicken recipe might sound like a lot, but it is delicious. But I wanted to try Barefoot Contessa's recipe. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna heat this pan up. And this recipe calls for cognac, which I don't think I've ever tried before. And it also calls for a dry white wine. I went down into my pantry where I keep my wine, and I thought I had more white wine down there than I do. And so I only have a Riesling, and I need to taste this to make sure that it's good. Last time I cooked with wine, I cook with wine way more than I drink with wine, or drink with wine. And I did not like the wine because it had been sitting in my fridge for quite some time, and I think it had gone bad in my fridge. And so I just want to taste this wine to make sure that it is good before I end up cooking with it. Oh, that smells good. We only need a couple tablespoons of that. I'm not going to taste that, but I am going to taste this just to make sure it's good. Now I have to find my wine opener. I haven't opened a bottle of wine in a while. Ooh, that smells good. It is a Riesling. I'm gonna just put it in this coffee cup because I'm just gonna do a little sip of it. So it tends to be a little bit more of a sweeter wine usually. That's good. Okay, we're gonna use that, and that's gonna make this dinner delicious. So I'm gonna brown this chicken actually in my really, really large cast iron. It's gonna take me a couple rounds to brown this, but that's totally fine. So I'm just gonna get some of our beautiful garlic oil in here. I'm gonna wait for this to get hot, and then we will brown this in batches. And once I put the seasoned side down in this pan, I will season the other side of this. And this is gonna take me a bit of time to brown all this chicken. So while this is browning, I'm gonna go ahead and reread my recipe one more time. I changed my mind again because we're gonna make the pan sauce in this and we're gonna use quite a bit of wine. I sometimes don't have the best luck making a wine sauce in my cast iron, so I'm gonna use my enamel cast iron pan to brown this chicken and to make our sauce. I'm gonna turn the stove off here. So now we're gonna go ahead and brown this chicken. I've got some of our garlic infused oil in here. I'm gonna stir this around. We're not looking to cook the chicken fully through. We're actually gonna braise this chicken. We are just going to get it nice and hot, nice and golden toasty, and we will finish it in the oven. You know what, while I have this out and we're browning our chicken, what I'm gonna do is do one more step on our potatoes. These potatoes have now cooled, so I'm gonna take this pastry brush, and I don't wanna toss these potatoes about too much because they are pretty tender. But I'm gonna go ahead, since I have my pastry brush out with my oil, and I'm gonna just brush these potatoes with our garlic oil. I think while I'm at it, I'm gonna brush our zucchini with oil too. I'm not gonna add any salt or anything to these because I do not want them to be sweating, just oil. I went ahead and I put my chicken in my pan seasoned side down, and then I can season the other side, and that just makes it really easy. And I am not going to overcrowd this pan, so it is going to take me a few minutes to process all this chicken. If I overcrowd the pan, then what can happen is the chicken can steam instead of brown. So we're looking to get a nice color on the chicken skin, but nowhere near are we going to be able to cook this chicken all the way through, and we don't want to. I just want to get a nice color on it because what we're trying to do is build flavor. So what I'm doing here now is these garlic cloves were so incredibly large that I go ahead and I actually end up cutting most of them in half and some of them in thirds so that they're more of like a traditional garlic clove size so that they can braise in the oven with the chicken when we make our sauce, and they can become just like this beautiful roasted garlic morsel that we want in our sauce. Once I have a really nice color on my chicken skin, then I'm going to go ahead and transfer this chicken into the baking dish that I'm going to actually braise these chicken pieces in the oven. Now, if I was doing this just for my little family and I wasn't doing 14, 16 plus pieces of chicken, I was just doing 4, then I would just braise this chicken in the dish that I'm browning the chicken in. But because I am making dinner for quite a few people, that dish obviously is not big enough, and so I'm transferring it into the dish that I'm going to serve it in. I'm going to brown all this chicken in batches, and then we're going to build our pan sauce inside this enamel cast iron, and then we'll pour that over top of our chicken, and then we can pop that in the fridge, and then I can just braise this meal tomorrow. So that's one nice thing about doing a recipe like this for a party, is it's really great to go ahead and do all of the work the day before and then throw it in the oven, and no one is the wiser that you did not prep it on the day of the party. This does make a little bit of a mess. You can see that the stove is getting splattered with oil, and you know, I just personally wouldn't want to do this on the day that I have my party because I wouldn't want to have to clean all of this and deal with all of the mess the day of the party. And so when my guests come over the following day after I do this, I just put everything in the oven and I can just hang out with them all day. I don't have to worry about prepping or cleaning up the day that they come. All I have to do is hang out with them, and then we'll throw this recipe in the oven and we'll let it cook in the oven and we can hang out while it is doing its thing. So I was able to get all the chicken brown. These are the last 2 pieces of chicken breast on here. And I'm gonna get this into my cooking dish. And now what we're gonna do is actually make our sauce. So I did not realize, I thought that this was a recipe where we were gonna finish it in the oven. And her recipe, you just finish it on the stove. Well, we're gonna finish it in the oven. So I'm gonna deviate from her recipe just a little bit, but not much. So what I'm gonna do here is I've got some butter. This is for flavor. I didn't wanna brown my chicken with butter because it has a lower smoke point than oil. And so you're more likely to get a lot of browning or burning in your pan if you use butter. And this chicken, I did not want to burn it. So I just put a little bit more oil in there with my butter. And we're gonna put some flour in. And her recipe does not call for chicken broth, but I am making so much that I need my wine to stretch a little bit. And so I'm gonna use a little bit of chicken broth to make this sauce. So I got 1 jar of chicken broth out. And if you don't cook with wine, you could make this recipe and leave out the cognac and leave out the wine and just use chicken broth, and it would still taste really, really good. Oops, I forgot. I was talking, and I forgot I needed to cook this garlic. It's okay, it's gonna cook in the oven for a good 40 minutes, so it will cook and get tender when we braise up our chicken. Because our chicken is nowhere near done. All I did was get the top and bottom nice and cooked. So because I have my flour in here, my bottom of my pan is browning quite a bit, and I don't want that to burn. So what I'm gonna do, this is the first time I'm ever cooking with this. I actually bought this for a Julia Childs recipe, and I never made it. It's still on my list of things to do. I need 4 tablespoons, so I just eyeballed that. I'm gonna cook out the alcohol. That smells so good. Now I'm gonna add almost this whole bottle of wine. And I did not add any black pepper to my chicken because I didn't want it to burn. So I'm gonna add quite a bit of black pepper now. I'm gonna scrape up the bottom of the pan. I'm gonna let this reduce by about 1/3. I put that whole bottle in there. There must have been a little bit of carbonation in that wine. So I'm gonna turn this down quite a bit while it's reducing, and I wanna go check outside. So the goal is to eat dinner outside, and right now it is, I think, like 6:10, and it's pretty warm right in the sun, but because we're having 12 people and I can't fit 12 people at my table, I was thinking I would put them right here. And look at that. We're having dinner at 7. My family, or my sister and her kids and her husband, are gonna come over here around 1 o'clock, and we're just gonna hang out all day. But we're planning to have dinner at 7. And I said 7 just because I wanted to make sure that this area was in the shade. In the last few days, I kept forgetting to come check to see if this area is in the shade. And it's 6:30, I think, or 6, I don't know what time it is. But it's nowhere near 7 quite yet, so I know that we'll be good. So I am gonna set us up right here. Do you see that? Right there. I have a family of bunnies that lives in my garden. And what we're trying to do you see it now? There, it's moving right between these 2 bushes. She's right there. I'm trying to coexist. So far, they haven't done too much damage to my garden. So as long as they don't do damage to my garden, we can coexist just fine. So I am so excited that this is in the shade because that's where we're gonna eat dinner. So I only have enough for 12 people. So what I think we're gonna do is I will set up a couple people at this table and we can just open these umbrellas and this will be in the shade by that time as well. This right here was the garlic that I harvested this morning, if you saw that. I got up at 5 to do that before it got too hot. So it's getting I'm getting a little tired, but we're gonna push through. I've got one more recipe that we need to prep and I do wanna get the tables out there, I think. And I need to still iron the, what are they called? Napkins. So we're back with our sauce. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just letting this garlic cook a little bit in this liquid because I forgot to kind of cook it before. I'm gonna start with 2 cups of broth here and I'm gonna let that cook together and I need to give this a taste test. That is good. Definitely needs something though. Obviously it's not cooked in with the chicken. I think it needs salt. It's gonna have cream in it, so we are gonna add cream at the end, which will add a level of sweetness. I was just looking in my fridge to see what I would want to add in here. She recommends adding thyme. I'm gonna add a bunch of fresh herbs at the end, so I don't really want thyme because that's kind of more of a fall flavor to me. But maybe I should. Maybe that's what it's missing, some like herbaceous note. This is a new spoon. I'm gonna have to deep clean my stove tonight, or maybe Josh will deep clean my stove tonight. There's my bunny. There she is. I think she is living in one of my garden beds. I found her in this one the other day, and I don't know if it's a she, but let's see, what am I out here for? Here we go. So here's some new growth on this. I'll leave that's already flowered in the garden bed, just the new growth. I need to come out and harvest a bunch of flowers for the tablescape. I don't know if I'm gonna do that tonight or tomorrow once it cools down a little bit. And look what I just found, my coffee cup. They are one of the most prolific things in the garden. So I got what I came for. So I'm just gonna give this a little wash. And I think I'm gonna throw these in whole so that I can fish them out really easily. And then if some of the thyme leaves come off in our sauce, all the better. My sauce is absolutely delicious. It's gonna change flavor a bit as it cooks with this chicken and once we add the cream. I also added a big spoonful of our roasted garlic. I'm gonna try to evenly disperse the sauce between the two. And I definitely have more sauce than the recipe calls for, and that's because we're gonna make some focaccia in just a second, and I wanted a lot of sauce to be able to soak up this beautiful sauce with. And then these need to cool. I'll cover them and put them in the fridge. So now we're gonna get going on the focaccia. I just got some water here. I probably should have started this earlier because this does require some stretch and folds, and I am maybe not gonna be up for those stretch and folds when time comes, but if I don't end up doing them, Josh will go ahead and do them for me. So I'm doubling this recipe because I want 2 loaves. One way to stretch a meal is with a really good bread. So in this, I'm gonna actually add, I have to refer to my recipe, I haven't made this in a bit. Water and yeast. Mix this together. We're gonna let this sit. While this is sitting, I could actually go ahead and cover my potatoes and zucchini because those are thoroughly cooled now. I can't cover my chicken because it's way too hot to cover at this point. So I'm gonna let that sit for a bit before I cover it and pop it in the fridge, but these look beautiful. I'm really excited about this zucchini to see how this works for us. My house smells incredible. Get this covered. What I'm probably gonna do in a little bit is sit down and relax for a while. And then, right before sunset, maybe around 8:39, I'm gonna head outside when it's super cool and breezy and beautiful. And I'm gonna harvest the flowers that I need for the table tomorrow. I don't wanna harvest them at the heat of the day. And I have gotten up really early for the past few days. And so I'm thinking a nice evening out in the garden, think about what I want to do in that one bed that I just emptied. Sounds like a great way to reward myself after a long day spent in the kitchen. I think these potatoes are actually going to be just fine. I am going to put together a cheese and meat plate. Super simple. Tomorrow, just because people are gonna get here so early, I just want them to be able to have my nephews and my sister and brother-in-law, just something to snack on, just because we're gonna be eating later so that we can eat outside and it's not so hot. And it has been enough time. I can take these out of the oven. They turned out beautiful. I think I'm gonna let them That is pretty exciting. So I'm not gonna set the table tonight because I don't want all the stuff out here overnight, but I wanted to get these tables out here just to kind of visualize this. This idea came to me last night, maybe the night before. I just decided to do this a couple days ago and I wasn't sure how I was gonna fit everybody outside. So this is pretty awesome. I think my yeast is no good. So Josh is on his way home. I'm gonna ask him to pick up some yeast. I don't wanna add 8 cups of flour to this if this yeast is dead. So I'm gonna pitch this, and then when Josh gets home, I am gonna make the focaccia, and I will show you how I'm gonna do that. It's really, really easy, but you need live yeast. I went ahead and I took these out of the oven. I'm just have them on a cooling rack. I'm gonna let them cool. It is 7:19. We have been in this kitchen for a while. I am gonna go change into some comfy clothes, and this kitchen needs some TLC. The stove needs to be deep cleaned. It's splattered all over it. I have my dishwasher going. Josh said that when he gets here, he's willing to unload and load the dishwasher and kind of get the floors clean, get the stove clean for me. And we got the heavy lifting of this dinner party done today. And with the help of Josh, he's gonna help me clean the kitchen. And tomorrow we are going to pull this whole dinner party together. I'm really looking forward to just having my sister, who now lives out of state, and her family over here, and we're just gonna enjoy each other's company. And then my parents are gonna come over, and my aunts and my uncle and my other aunt are gonna come over, and now my other niece and nephew are gonna come over, and we're gonna have a wonderful dinner, just hanging out, and I'm gonna share with you how we're gonna pull this whole thing together. But I really need to go change into some comfortable clothes and put my feet up for a bit, because it has been a very productive day so far. Well, I said I was going to go change and then go harvest flowers, but what my heart wanted to do was go harvest flowers, so that's what I did. And it was perfect timing because by the time I got the flowers harvested and I got back inside and changed, Josh was home with some new yeast, so we could go ahead and make up our focaccia. Now, focaccia is super easy to make, and it is so delicious. So if you've never made it, I highly recommend it. And it's just simple ingredients. It's water, a little bit of sugar, yeast, salt, bread flour, and a high quality oil. The oil flavor is going to come through in your final focaccia. So one thing you do want to do is use a nice oil that you like the flavor of. All I'm going to do is mix this together. This is a very, very hydrated dough, so I'm not going to knead this. And we're just going to let this sit for 30 minutes. Once I get the flour mixed in with the water, cover it, and then we're going to do what are called stretch and folds. And we need to do 3 of them every 30 minutes. It sounds fancy. It's not. All you do, which I will show you, is you just take the dough and you fold it up onto itself, and then you do that about 6 or 7 times, and then you wait 30 minutes and you repeat that process, and you've got your stretch and folds down. So there's no kneading. So it's actually kind of a no knead bread recipe. So Josh got home and he was helping me clean up the kitchen because it definitely needed some TLC. It was pretty messy, which was a great help. And I do want to mention, friend, so this is what a stretch and fold is. It's super, super easy. You just take a wet hand, that's the key, so the dough doesn't stick to you. You stretch it, fold it over on itself, and you repeat this process about 6 times. You cover it, you let it rest, and then you do the same thing. I do end up putting this dough into a bigger bowl because I realized with the double batch it wasn't going to fit in this bowl. Once you do your stretch and folds, you pop it in the refrigerator and it rests in the refrigerator until you're ready for it to come out and do its second rise before you bake it. But I did want to mention, friend, I think for the past 6 to 9 months I have been baking bread with yeast that was not very active or alive. And I think it's really been affecting my bread lately. And I can just tell you that I have now baked with this yeast that Josh bought me, and my bread has been coming out absolutely beautiful. And so if you have bread that's not coming out perfect, I might recommend you give your yeast a test. Just put it in some water and with a little bit of sugar, put some yeast in there and see if it bubbles. When I did the first yeast and water and sugar and let that sit, it did not bubble after 15 minutes. And then with the yeast that Josh bought me, there was a good solid 1 inch of like foam on the top. So that is what makes me think that for the past 6 to 9 months, I have been working with yeast that has not been very bubbly and my bread has been affected. So just a little note, maybe check your yeast before you do any bread baking. So it is actually the next day. It is early in the morning and I wanted to get out here before I got ready, and I kind of wanted to play around with the table. One of my new hobbies is decorating tables. I never would have thought that would have been something that would bring me so much joy, but decorating a beautiful table brings me joy. And one thing I have found is that I have been slowly kind of been building my tablescape collection. And one rule I have for myself whenever I buy anything for decorating a table is that I want it to be neutral so that it can kind of stretch for any holiday or any occasion. And depending on like what flowers I put on the table or what little tiny decorations I put on the table, that is what can make it either holiday specific or themed specific. And so I'm reusing a lot of the same items that I use in my everyday life for this table scape, and I'm using items I have thrifted over the years and items that I have bought for other parties. And we are going to be able to make a very unique table scape for this party just based on how I combine the different items together. These chargers and the tablecloths are items that I got for Josh's birthday. The 2 items I bought specifically for this dinner party were these green table runners. They were very inexpensive, and the silverware that you saw. And these dishes that we have here are dishes that I use every day. These are our normal dishes. The cups are cups that I thrifted many, many years ago, and it's just a hodgepodge, and that's what I'm going to serve our drink in. And then these are some new silverware pieces that I got for this party plus every other party that I'm going to have. Now, that's just the start of the table. The table's not completely finished, but that's what I was able to get done before I needed to come inside and actually get my focaccia rising for its next rise. So all I do here is I put some oil down in the bottom of a 9x13 baking dish. Again, when you're making focaccia, I highly recommend you use an oil that you like the flavor of, because you use quite a bit of it, that flavor is going to come through. So if you're using an olive oil that you don't love the flavor of, then maybe find one that you do before you make focaccia. And I've been seeing all these really cool focaccia recipes on Instagram where you make like a French toast focaccia, or you make a jelly donut focaccia. And I'm really excited. My sister and I were talking about that the day that they were over, and I have all these really fun focaccia recipes that I want to try. But today we're making a garlic and oil focaccia. So all I'm going to do is get this dough out of my bowl. I'm going to put it into my baking dish. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the top. We're going to cover this, and this is going to rise for about 3 to 4 hours. It really depends on the temperature of your house, how long it's going to take to rise. This dough is cold out of the fridge, so it kind of first has to warm up to room temperature before it'll actually start doing its second rise. So I just make sure I have a little bit of oil on the top and bottom of it. We're going to cover this and let it sit. And then after this, I'm going to go get ready for the day and kind of work on the other things that need to be done. But because we went ahead and we got the majority of the cleaning and cooking done the day before, there's really not that much we have to do other than finish setting the table and actually cooking all of the food, so I get to really enjoy my family. Well, the flowers look beautiful. The table is almost completely set, and I'm not going to put those flowers out on the table until that table is in the shade, because I don't want them to wilt. I have my little charcuterie, just some crackers. I'm going to go ahead and cut up the cheese that we got when we were in Tillamook, Oregon at the Tillamook Cheese Factory. I'm going to put that on here. I have a little bit of olives. I have some salami, and that will just be out. My sister and her kids are going to be here in about a half an hour. Josh helped me get the kitchen all clean. We got the floors clean. We got the powder bathroom clean, and the bread is rising, and I will probably pop this in the oven in about an hour. And I don't know when my parents are coming or when a little cute little bouquet right here. My aunts and my uncle are coming. So I don't really know what the agenda is. They're gonna get here around 1 o'clock. I don't know if we're gonna go into town, go to a park, hang out here. The day is completely open. All the food is prepped and ready to go. So all that we have to do is probably around 5:30 or 6. I will start throwing the different items in the ovens. Other than the bread will be done at that point, and you are gonna see how this whole entire dinner party is going to come together. So thank you for being here, and I can't wait to eat tonight's dinner. I think it's gonna be absolutely delicious. So I'm really glad that I was able to get all the prep done. Once this dishwasher is done running, there's only a few things in it. It's probably only half full. I'm gonna go ahead and unload it. I want it completely empty so that after dinner, all those dishes can go directly into the dishwasher. And so it just makes my life easier. So even though it wasn't full, I went ahead and ran it on a quick cycle. And yeah, so I will see you when we start pulling this whole dinner party together. So this is my sister and I finishing up this focaccia. So what my sister is doing is taking 2 little spoons and dolloping our garlic paste on top of the focaccia. And then my sister is going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil over the top, so then I can take my hands and I can actually dimple the top of the focaccia. This right here is what gives you those craggy bits. That's very traditional with focaccia. And then my sister has some flaky sea salt, and she's going to put that on the top of the bread. And then we're going to bake this in the oven for about 35 minutes. This turns out incredible. There was no bread left at the end of the night. So this is going into the oven, and this was the only thing I had to do other than cut up the cheese for the cheese plate. When we went to the Oregon coast together about 3 weeks ago, maybe it's been more like a month and a half now. I don't know. We went to the beach and we bought a bunch of different cheese. The one my sister and I were just trying is a 2012 vintage cheddar cheese, and it was pretty incredible. I did not buy this cheese thinking that I would serve it at this party, but it kind of worked out perfect. So we cut this up and we thoroughly enjoyed it. I was thinking it was going to be so incredibly sharp it would be hard to eat because it had aged for so long, but it was actually kind of sweet, and it had these like crystally crunchy salty bits. I don't think it's salt. I think it has something to do with the protein structure when cheese ages that long, but it was incredible. We also served it with some smoked black pepper cheddar and a chili garlic cheddar, some olives, some salami, and crackers. And I just put this out right when everyone got here and they ate it up, and it was a perfect thing to have because we do eat dinner pretty late on this day. So once the bread hit the internal temperature I wanted, I took it out and I let it rest. And at this point, we had hours and hours and hours of just hanging out. And so then the next thing that needed to go when it came to cooking is I needed to get this chicken into the oven. I knew this chicken was probably going to take at least 2 hours or so to cook. I almost said 2 to 3, but it ended up taking about an hour and a half to 2. I don't remember exactly how long it took, but it took a long time because it was so cold because it had been sitting in the refrigerator. And so I wanted to make sure I had enough time for it to cook and then also cool down a little bit before we served it. And now at this point, we've relaxed, we've enjoyed each other's company, we've talked, we've played games, we went on a little shopping trip, and now we're back and I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the ingredients pulled together. These are the really crispy potatoes. So those potatoes, I went ahead and I put salt on them because I hadn't seasoned them. I put our garlic paste on them and I threw them in a really hot oven. The temperature had cooled down. Our table was in shade, and so my aunts and my sister helped me finish decorating the table by putting the flowers on the table. This ended up being kind of a group effort to bring this dinner together. It was all hands on deck, and people just jumped in and really helped out, and it made my life easy. My aunt here is cutting up the focaccia. This focaccia was incredible. We get this in a bowl. We end up putting one whole focaccia on the island where I serve the main dinner, and then we put one of the focaccias in smaller bowls on the table so that people didn't have to get up and go inside to get seconds on bread. And I think that worked out really well because the sauce the chicken made was the gravy, technically I guess is what it would be called, was so good that everyone wanted that bread to dip their bread into the sauce because it was just so good. I also made up some strawberry lemonade from some strawberry lemonade concentrate that we had made up earlier. And then I checked the internal temperature of the chicken. When it hit the temperature I wanted, I pulled it out of the oven and we let that rest. And then I put my oven onto broil so we could finish this zucchini dish. I set it onto high and I seasoned the zucchini with salt because I hadn't done that the night before. This has the garlic infused oil on it, and I only broiled it on one side for about 4 minutes, and it was perfectly tender. I did not want to flip it because I did not want the zucchini to get overcooked. So I go ahead and I take these zucchini ribbons off the skewers and I put it into this serving dish. And then we are going to finish it with that beautiful cheese sauce we made. Now, I have some family, which I didn't know that they didn't like feta cheese until after I made this. And they said that even though they're not huge feta cheese fans, they loved this because I had cut the feta with the ricotta. It wasn't as strong of that feta flavor that they loved it. So after I just dolloped little bits of the feta cheese mixture on the top, I end up taking those marinated tomatoes that we marinated earlier, and I didn't just put the tomatoes on the top. I took the marinade from the tomatoes, so there was the vinegar and the salt and the oil, and I poured that all over the top, and then I dolloped it with tomatoes, and that was a fantastic dish. Here are the roasted potatoes coming out. Because we had pre-boiled them and shook them up, they got really crunchy and delicious. I topped those with herbs. The potatoes were the last thing to come out of the oven. My mom did fill all the glasses with ice and water, and my aunt went ahead and lit the candles. It always signifies that dinner is about to be served when the candles are lit. I love the ambiance that candles bring to a dinner party, and it was just a group effort to finish pulling this dinner together. I absolutely love spending the day in the kitchen creating a beautiful meal for the ones I love. It's definitely the way I like to show the people I love that I love them, is through food. And to make it less stressful on myself, one way I do that is to prep majority of the food the day before. And it just made for a really fun and relaxing day, just spending time with my family. They were there from about 1 p.m. until about almost 9 o'clock, and the majority of that time was not spent in the kitchen, yet we were able to work together to pull off an incredible meal. You might notice there's a salad here. Last minute, we decided to throw together a simple salad, and I just whipped up a simple balsamic vinaigrette. After dinner, my family jumped in and completely cleaned my entire house while I was making the whipped cream for the dessert. It was absolutely incredible. They left my house probably cleaner than when they showed up. So that is one thing that family is pretty awesome when it comes to that. So here is what the pavlova looks like. It has a little bit of whipped cream, both of the curds, and some freshly picked blueberries. This is my new favorite dessert, blueberry custard pie. Incredible. I will link all these recipes that I can down in the description box. And I just want to thank you, friend, for taking time out of your day to spend time with me as we made this incredible meal for my family. I feel like you are part of my family. You are here along for the journey. We grew a lot of these ingredients together, and I just greatly appreciate every single one of you. You can see how they left my backyard better than when they came. And if you want to watch more of my videos, I'll pop some here. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being you. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.